Eventually.
This is the only time for public comments.
In a future meeting, I
Oh,
think.
future meeting, okay, all right. All right, and we can move on to declaration of conflict of interest. No, nothing to declare? Okay. Approval of consent agenda. Oops, let's see.
Approval of meeting agenda.
Who's got, yeah, wait, I'm clicking, what is going, okay, there we go. Approval of meeting agenda. You can say we're missing something. Okay,
Make a motion to approve?
second?
I second, or you second, you seconded. Were you
Oh, no, I
calling for a
didn't
second?
I was
seconded.
calling for it, but you can go ahead and second. Any discussion? No? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then the agenda is approved as presented. Now, approval of consent agenda. Everybody get a chance to read everything in the consent agenda?
Mhm.
We got the minutes and the resources activity, what else is in there? Check register for January?
Yep.
Okay. All right, if nobody has any questions about anything that's in there, we can take a motion to approve it.
Oh.
Go
ahead.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I second that.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
No? Okay. Oh, Ben?
No, go ahead, let's finish.
Oh, you're good, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Okay, then we can approve the consent agenda as presented.
Before we go further,
Mhm.
I was asked for a copy of the agenda, and so I just wanted to make sure I could get that.
Oh, okay.
Would you mind passing on running to the main office quick?
Main office? Yep.
Yeah, second floor works.
Okay, yep.
And I'm gonna print a couple if you wouldn't mind bringing them all.
Yep.
Do you want me to wait, or do you want me to? Go ahead. Ben?
We should be right back.
Okay.
Can I second check?
Quick, Kayla, quick.
Oh wait, are you guys going to the Black to the Future one at the 825 Arts? I saw you guys on the list. It's the Sadie's. Yeah.
I haven't seen anything about it, somebody might be.
Like she like Back to the Future.
Yeah.
She did like a comic called Black to the Future,
Yeah.
like about all black.
I think she has a whole series of comics.
She does. It's actually really
Lyric
cool.
has them, I bought them a couple years ago. I mean, I guess we could have the dude in the back move up to the financial report, huh?
Did you just get done with the consent agenda? I think we're all set here too, so.
Okay, all right, financial report from the dude in the back.
Yep, you're welcome. You're welcome. You guys need it?
Give one to Krista.
I'm Carl Gentoft, I'm partner with 10 Square, and also working for the school as a fractional CFO. I'm here to present the January financials, which, so we did go through from last month and updated the board-approved budget. So the board-approved budget that you see in this month's financials reflects what we had passed in December. Currently, the board-approved budget had a targeted surplus of $317,000. We are currently have been adjusting our budget as we get more and more information for the year, and we're currently projecting a surplus at the end of the year of $235,667. This would bring our operating fund balance to a little over $2.5 million, or 18% of our total expenditures. For our requirements, for the bond covenants, with days cash on hand, we're looking at about 28 days by the end of the year with these projections. For cash on hand as receivable, 61 days, which is above our required. 30 days, and debt service coverage ratio should be also in compliance. we are at this point 58.3% of the way through the year, and our revenues have come in at 57.1%. There's a few things like some federal grants that are trailing for reimbursement. And our expenditures are at 51.9%. And as we know, given the salary structure of 10-month versus 12-month salaries, 10-month salaries, that expenditures will keep coming up as get closer and closer to the revenues as the year goes on. We have currently a little over 1.4 million in the checking account, and we have $800,000 in the CDARS account, which is the secured CD that's earning interest for us. That cash balance will continue to drop each month through the end of the year as well, as the expenses catch up to the revenues. Let me see. For the Empire States holdback, we got a payment in January, so that is now down to 41,000. So that's good news. That continues to come in for the money that was withheld last year. So we expect to not have any problems getting that money coming in. Federal aid receivables from last year have been paid in full, so that's also good. And currently, we have about $54,000 in receivable balance for federal aid for this year as well. We're still waiting for our first full-service community grant, and our Grow Your Own payments are we're waiting on MDE right now. They're kind of working through how the payments are going to happen, but they're holding up the money until they get that all worked out. Let me see. Go to in the graphics, the graph section, you can see in the first graph, again, this is just same thing we just talked about, 57.1% of the revenues, 51.9% of the expenses. You can show our fund balance history over the course of the last couple of years. And then you can see on the bottom graph that the revenues are coming in almost exactly on where we expect them, and the expenses are coming in with a gap that's closing as we go towards the end of the year. One of the main changes that we have in the since the last board meeting is we had a 10 student drop in our weighted average daily membership. And so given the circumstances that have been going on, we're seeing a bit more attrition than we would normally see and higher than we have had in previous years. And we are being paid, because we had to give MDE an estimate when we first, at the beginning of the year, we're being paid on 642 weighted ADM right now. So we are now right within one weighted ADM of our actuals versus the budget. And so we're continuing to watch that and looking at what we can do for recruiting and boosting attendance, but that is a concern that we'll be keeping a close eye on. The last graph that we have there is kind of the cash balance projection, and there's three colors on that bar. We have the amount that we have available in our line of credit, which is $650,000. We have the amount in the secured CD, which is $800,000, and then we have the amount that's in our checking account. And you can see the checking account drops over time, and then in June the CD will mature, and then we'll get the interest from that, and that cash will be available to cover anything that may happen in June. Though we do expect to have a small, we still have about $200,000 in the bank without that, but we want to make sure that that money is available as we get towards the end of the year. On the balance sheet, you can see that there is our cash position with both the money in we have 1.4 million again in the checking account, $800,000 in the CDARS account, and then we have our due from the building company, which is a big part of our fund balance, of 1.159 million. And then we were starting to clear out some of the other things like the state aid receivable, and then our holdback for this year, which is normally 10%, that we're tracking is gonna be smaller this year because we're being paid on 642 students instead of the 601 that we have right now. So that's something we're gonna watch, and make sure that we're keeping track of that, so we're not having any surprises next year at all. Let's see, you can see our current receivables. We also, at this point, we have accounts payable just under $100,000, and we still have some payroll deductions, contributions that we've prepaid. And we are reserving salaries and benefits for the summer, for next year of the 10-month salaries, so that they are able to spread that out, even it out for next summer. Finally, we can look down and say our beginning unreserved fund balance was $2.259 million. Our net income to date is $866,000, but that's kind of an artificial number. That number will go down towards the $200,000+ that we're projecting right now by the end of the year. That just shows that we have more cash and revenues than we have expenses at this point. Our targeted, and then we have, so we're still gonna be building our fund balance, but it'll be close to like $2.4 million by the end of the year. Again, in terms of the revenues, on the summaries, the things we've talked about before, the state revenues are spot on, federal revenues are lagging a little bit, local revenues a little bit ahead, and then the food service revenues, because it's all reimbursables, are also lagging a little bit. And the expenditures, the salaries and benefits are right kind of where we expected in terms of lagging behind. That'll catch up as the year goes on. But we also will have a little bit lower here due to some of the special ed staffing that we've had, where we've moved salaries and from special ed salaries into special ed services that are coming in, and so there'll be a slight shift there that won't impact our overall budget, but that we are tracking. Finally, we are also working on monitoring our supplies and materials, which is usually tend to be front-loaded for the year, but we still have stuff coming in, but we'll be watching that as well. Okay, as we look at the revenues, again, in more detail, there's nothing here that's a huge surprise. I mean, we are, like, the grants are coming in, but we are starting to see MDE start allocating funds across the board now, which is good, because we're starting to even out some of the buckets and make it look more normalized. Federal revenues, again, are lagging a little bit. And then on the local revenues, we have got our third payment from the Twain interest. So that's come in. Our interest earnings are lagging a little bit because the CD, we don't get to recognize the interest that comes in until it matures in June. So that will go from, like, it'll be steady, and then it'll increase a bunch towards the end of the year. Let's see, I think everything else here seems to be about normal. On the expenditures, you can see that, like, again, the lagging in salaries and wages and benefits, which we talked about. But as you go down some of the variances, there are some things right now that we're watching closely, which is like our repairs and maintenance. We're looking at, we're going through our budget and updating our working budget as we get more information in. We're also gone back to creative planning to make sure that they're allocating the expenses in the same way that we're allocating them in our budget, and so there's a little bit of truing up there that we're working on. But in general, we are, overall where we want it to be. We're just, like, watching some of the line items that's a little bit high, and we're managing those as we go towards the end of the year. You see, on the next page, you can see the state special ed expenditures. The salaries are lower than what you'd have on the gen ed salaries, but you can see that contracted services are up considerably over what we had initially had in our budget. That's to be expected as we've had some challenges hiring staff members, but have outsourced the required services to contracted services instead. Food service, we're watching also watching food service with the changes and fluctuations in attendance. We're gonna probably see some changes over the next month, because we're required to have a certain number of meals available, and if students are not in person attending, then there's a hit to us because we have to pay for those meals, we don't get reimbursed for them. So we'll be updating that, I think, at the course of this month, and you'll see that in our numbers hopefully for next month. But we are tracking that closely. And then community services fund, like the full service community grant and stuff, we're still waiting for that to be dispersed by MDE. And finally, as we have our cash projections and our income projections, again, you can see we're kind of on track for where we thought we'd be. We have the available line of credit that is at $650,000. We don't plan on drawing that down this year at all, which would be great after the last couple of years. And then our month-end cash balance it keeps decreasing, and then in June it pops up because the CD is then moved over to cash at that point. But everything right now is kind of tracking where we're hoping it to be, and with the exception of like the food service and then some of the grants that have been delayed. Any questions? Sorry, it's a lot to go at once.
Once our CD is mature, will you present a plan to like
Yeah.
renew it or?
Yeah, no, as that comes along, we'll be looking in just so you can help maximize kind of the interest that you're getting with your investment policy. But we just wanted to make sure, just given, the uncertainties, that we had that money available when we have the trough of our cash position, and then we'll be able to reinvest it as more cash comes in. But we'll be a presentation on that, I'm sure, probably around May. Right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you need me for?
I think you're good, thank
All
you.
right.
Go, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. So I just have a quick question about the food. Has that, like, been scaled back based on kind of what attendance has been on a weekly basis? Or I know it takes a while for adjustments to be made through the caterer. Do you know what that has looked like?
I believe, and Esteban, you can jump in here, I believe that we are making adjustments weekly is how frequently that we can make them. She's adjusted it, Jasmine has adjusted it, but it's hard, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't wanna have a situation where
We
someone
don't,
comes
yeah.
into, a student comes to school and we don't have food for them,
Mhm.
so it is hard. We've not run into that circumstance that I'm aware of where that's happened. I think she's doing a great job, but it's a tricky situation for sure.
And maybe just doing lunch just for summer program, I know how hard it is when kids don't show up. I'm just wondering if and it's, going back to in-person, was that today? Was it sometime this week?
Tomorrow.
Oh, it's tomorrow, okay. So it probably isn't valid anymore. I was just wondering if there would have been some sort of option. Let's hope it doesn't come to fruition again, that we have to think about it, but having some sort of like cold lunch option that parents could pick up at the beginning of a week or something, that we could still be reimbursed for that, or something along the, like some sort of creative thinking around that, if the catering company would be willing to work with us on something like that, so we're not having to guess all of the time, cause it's so hard to have to do
Kind of
that. It's
doing
really
two things,
frustrating.
what is it, killing two birds with one stone?
Mhm.
You're doing food delivery and selling
Yeah.
alcohol.
Yeah,
I
so
like
that,
it.
so kids
I
are still
like it.
getting fed and we're not losing money, cause I know how
Mhm.
frustrating breakfast and lunch is to try to guesstimate all of that, but let's hope it doesn't
How
happen
much do they
again.
charge you for breakfast?
How much are the breakfasts?
Yeah.
For staff or
Or
for
no,
students?
like if like a student doesn't, show up, like how much are they charging you for the?
Or what do we pay for breakfast and lunch?
Does that make sense?
I'd have to look at our agreement with
I'm just
CKC
curious how
unless you know
much
off the
they're-
top of your head.
3 and change for breakfast and like somewhere around $5 for lunch. But on the delivery part, we unfortunately got recommendation from, or the guidance from MD is that we can't provide reimbursable meals to students when they're doing online learning. That was something that we explored at the beginning of, like, how can we do this and continue serving meals, but the guidance when it came to the hybrid model that we ran with students being online, that we could not serve meals to students that were not present at school.
So parents couldn't even pick them up.
Correct. Students needed to
I mean,
need
why bother
attendance,
kids
of
when
course,
they're
in
just,
school.
you don't have to feed them just because they're learning at home.
You need to run MDE, Michelle.
Look, I'm running enough stuff, okay. Okay, it's just a thought. Okay, that was just my question, okay, that's all I had for that. All right, I guess we can move on to finance and operations strategic plan update.
Great.
I think we're,
Did we
We're
do,
on-
did I
Bunch of
miss something? A whole,
policies.
oh, I missed a
No,
whole,
I said that was a
my,
theme.
my computer just went wonky, I guess I skipped down.
We're on
January
7.
financial report.
no,
Did we do
just
the,
did
no,
that.
proposed revised salary scale,
There
why
we
is
go.
my computer
It's
just?
okay. It's okay.
Ben's
Okay.
been waiting for this.
Ben's
Have
been
I?
waiting, I know, this is like your joy of all joys here, Ben. Okay.
All right.
Why do I not have, oh, it says following this link. Yep, okay, got
You
it,
got it?
my link worked, yep.
Perfect. The mission statement's there. I know that
Mhm.
all of us have memorized it, so we'll leave it there. But it's there for reference. It is important that at the board and for our school that we do keep driving back to our mission. It really does say, it says a lot, but it says a lot about who we are and what we're trying to do for our students here in our community. The agenda, there's really 3 things that I want to talk through. First is the rationale for this proposed structure, and this is a proposal. This is brought to you as information, not seeking approval on any changes at this time. It just simply is too early for us to adopt a new salary scale. We talked a little bit about some of the unknowns, certainly around enrollment. Some of the other unknowns that we have that are part of the board packet around compensatory revenue is an important one. The per pupil increase from last year to this year is another important one. And some of those things, if not all of those things, need to be better understood before we commit to something that will ultimately cost the organization more money. So it is brought to you for information. I thought it was important that it did come to you for information now, though, because it is something that we could start talking about potential candidates as we think about recruitment and retention of our staff here and new staff coming into this school. So rationale, the revised model, I'll walk through that, and then I'll talk a little bit about what it all means for the organization. On the rationale, one of our biggest issues that we needed to address is to create a scale that is more competitive with St. Paul Public. I'll show you, or is on the next slide, I'll talk about that we have lagged behind St. Paul Public, especially as they've made some really important substantial changes to their salaries, specifically for their teachers. And again, I'll talk more about that in a second. But those early years of our teachers compared to the early years of teachers in St. Paul Public, there's quite a gap now. We also had a situation where the way that we had been giving raises over the years had meant that that there was no mechanism to slow down people who were on the high end of the salary scale. And so if you were already on the high end of the salary scale and we continued to apply what we typically did for a percentage increase for all staff, that's not a sustainable model. And again, as I'll talk about here in just a minute, it's why in most places they have some sort of slowdown mechanism, like a stipend that happens after a certain number of years. But having no way to slow down the high-end earners is also will also become problematic for the organization in terms of being able to afford that kind of compensation. The other part is around improving equity in our salary and staff placement. That we've, and just to some of the history I don't fully understand still at this point, but looking at salaries and looking at years of service for our staff, it does seem like there's at times some inconsistencies that we could do much better at being equitable for our staff and being more clear about where placement should be, what it means for people coming into the organization, and what it means for our current employees. So equity across salaries is another big part of this. If you were to look at the contracts for St. Paul Public and for St. Paul City School, and for a teacher, and so if you're following along on slide 5, one for a bachelor's degree, first year as a teacher at St. Paul City School, that number's $42,000. That's $45,000 if you have a master's degree. In comparison, that same teacher, first-year teacher with a bachelor's degree in St. Paul Public in 2026 starts at $58,584, and that same person with a master's degree starts at $65,070. If you jump all the way down that scale and looked at step 20 on our scale versus St. Paul Public step 20, the bachelor degree person at St. Paul City Schools at $70,194.16, masters at $75,208.02. But at St. Paul Public, that step 20 bachelor's at just over $80,000 and just under $100,000 for a master's degree. So we're pretty far off, especially at those early stages. The $42,000 and $45,000 is a long ways from $58,000 and $65,000. If you look at the table or graphic of information on the right side of that slide, step 1, and maybe I should explain, in St. Paul Public there are 3 different job titles that are fairly similar. There's EA1, there's EA2, Educational Assistant 1, Educational Assistant 2, and Teacher Assistant. So all 3 of those are listed here. Teacher Assistant 2 is listed here. They're all 3 listed here for comparison. Our understanding, although we would need to do a little bit more digging on this, is that a lot of our special education paras, which is most of our paras, they are teacher assistants in St. Paul Public. But here you can see the starting step 1 for a para here is $22.78, and then EA1, EA2, TA2 is $23.82, $27 an hour, $21.63. So we're really right in the ballpark for St. Paul Public's comparison to the EAs and the TA there. Step 14, very similar. We would be at $32.37 an hour, and for an EA1 at step 14, they're at $31.28 in St. Paul, so we're actually higher than St. Paul Public at step 14 for a para. EA2 is at just under 39, and the TA2 is at 28.48. And again, we're at 32.37 at that step 14. One thing to note that on our current scale at St. Paul City School, we go to step 16, and that step 16 is $36.06 an hour. St. Paul Public stops at step 14, and their TA stops at step 7. Thinking broadly about basically all of the rest of the staff at St. Paul City School. So this is just titled district staff. So take out all the paras, take out all the teachers, and if we were to look at the rest of the staff here all together, this becomes a little bit more challenging to compare apples to apples between our organization and St. Paul Public Schools. First, that we don't have a scale established for these staff. Unlike paras and EAs, where our employee handbook has a scale, in the case of the rest of our district staff, there is no scale. There is no reference point. Additionally, the positions and titles have varied by what's asked of them in the job, the length of the work year, and their salary. New salaries, for what I've gathered over the last year and a half, have generally followed what other people in a similar position have been paid. So oftentimes the conversation usually was, well, what does so-and-so get paid for a similar kind of position? But that's sort of problematic because there's a lot that goes into these positions in terms of experience and education. So again, just the comparisons are not very straightforward in thinking about all of the varied roles that we have in what I'm calling district staff and all of those positions and what they would look like in a big district like St. Paul Public. It's much more difficult to compare them. That said, I did have on here step 1 for, I did include a principal's step. Assistant elementary principal, they start at 111, 856. A principal, step 1, a first year principal would start at 130, 839. And step 7 for an elementary assistant principal is 145, and principal is 150 for step 7. So I put that in there just for reference. Again, not super helpful because it doesn't paint the whole picture, because there's, again, so many different roles that are part of the district staff. A couple other notes. One of the ways that it appears that St. Paul Public has moved as quickly as they have to raise the floor for their teachers is they dissolve the first 5 years on their scale. So if you were to go to their website and you were to pull up their scale right now, you would see the teacher scale starts at 6.
Yeah.
1 through 5 is no longer there, and effectively removing those steps 1 through 5 meant that they start at step 6, and therefore that starting wage is a lot higher than what it was previously. I don't know this. My guess, though, is that a big part of the reason why they did that was on the same things that we're looking at here, which is recruitment and retention for teachers into the profession. I mentioned this earlier, but in St. Paul Public, in most cases, there is some sort of mechanism to slow down the scale from a percentage increase. So typically that looks like a stipend at the end of a scale, whether that scale ends at 14 or 20 or 25 or 30 or whatever it is. There's some sort of stipend that gets added in, and so there isn't this percentage or larger increase that's happening year over year. If you wouldn't mind going to the document that's linked on slide 8, this is the draft of this scale. This just gives you a little bit more information about the proposed salary structure that.
So right now, nothing like this exists, or
What exists now is a scale for teachers
Teachers.
and paras
but nobody
with
else.
those numbers and the starting points and that step 20 that I referenced earlier. Those do exist right now.
But not for like the other sort of,
Mm-mm.
yeah, okay.
So I'll just briefly explain this because there's a fair amount here. But what this proposal is doing, and this draft is doing, is carrying forward the paraprofessional scale just as is. So what you see here is not a change from the paraprofessional scale that is currently in our staff handbook. The numbers are all the same that I just referenced earlier. What is different is that on the teacher side, if we're looking sort of in the middle of the document, that the floor is raised fairly substantially. That $48,000 for the first year teacher at St. Paul City School, that is, I have the number here. Maybe I didn't write a note. I can double check it, but that is about, do you remember, is it 82 or 86%?
Sorry, for what?
That first year teacher, do you remember, compared to St. Paul?
I have my notes, I can fish for them. I got it.
That's okay. It's in the 80s. I'll double check. I thought I had a note here. But it's I want to say 82% of the starting salary for St. Paul Public. It raises our first year teacher in that category from $42,000 to $48,000. It's well short of where St. Paul Public is, but it's a step in the right direction. That same percentage increase that I was talking about, that I think 82% of the salary, is it 82?
Yep.
That's the same for the master's salary starting point too, and so we took 82. We knew that 82% of the bachelor's is where we were going to be. We matched that to the master's, so that starting salary of $53,040 is 82% of the first year master's teacher in St. Paul Public. So that number, if it's helpful, what that means, right, is that we're talking about a new teacher coming into the profession here would earn 82% of what they earn currently at St. Paul Public. Happy to take questions as we go too. If you scroll over, this is slightly more complicated here. But this is a way to start to think about how do we get to a coordinated, equitable system for all of the rest of those district staff. And so what you have here is listed out all of the different types of positions that we have. non-licensed manager, coordinator, or generalist. We have some of those at 10-month, we have some of those at 12-month. And you can see on down that list of different job types that if you see a duplicate, it means that there is a 10-month position and a 12-month position, which you can see in column L. What we did to try to make some sense of how do we map a plan going forward is we developed a responsibility and longevity factor. That's what is titled RLF in column M. So each job class was given an RLF, which is a percentage of the teacher's scale. So everything reflects back to the teacher's scale. And those positions were given different RLFs based on the responsibilities of that position, whether they are required to supervise people, if they have strategic direction responsibility or department responsibility, if they supervise people, if they coordinate programs. So everybody was assigned an RLF, and that's essentially a way to think about that as a percentage of the teacher's salary. And so if you took 1.15, for example, that's for the licensed manager, coordinator, generalist, that 55,200 is 115% of step 1 teacher's salary.
The 48.
Correct.
Okay. All right, just want to make sure I was on the same
Right.
page. Okay, good.
You got it.
Yes.
You got it.
Sounds good, sounds good.
So this is, again, a way for us to start to think about how do we categorize these positions that have been really varied, and sometimes I think in the past we've maybe even made up things about what a job position should be or a title. And this gives us a way to say, no, these are the job classes that we have here. This is what it looks like from a salary standpoint, and here's where we're going to slot maybe a new position into. Well, it's this position, which means it's a salary of this. Now we just need to go back and look at their years of experience to figure out what their salary is going to be. Because something like this didn't exist at all, the only way to get to a place to work off of for these folks was to take their current salary and their years of service, and their RLF, and then sort of backwards calculate what their effective year of service would be, which would allow us to then look at the scale and see when they would move into a stipend place. I'm going to leave out a couple details here. For all of our current staff, if this was to be approved and we were to go forward with this, I'll take an example of a teacher who currently makes $45,000, I'm going to say, that we would move them to the next step up from their salary. So that staff member would move to 48,000. Their salary for next year would go to 48,960, because that would then be step 2. So in the case for all staff, they would be placed, to get everybody on a scale, they would be placed at the next highest salary on the new scale from where they currently are.
That piece one more time. They'll be placed on.
The next highest
Yep.
salary on the new scale, that'll become their new placement.
Gotcha.
As we go to next year, then they'll move to the next step down the scale. You can see that stipends kick in for paraprofessionals at year 21, for teachers at year 26, and at year 26 for the rest of the district staff. The difference between steps, if you're looking at, for example, salary on the teacher scale, 48,000 to 48,960 in steps 1 and 2, and so on, that represents a 2% increase from one step to the next. So if this is moved forward and this is adopted, then the board would be approving a 2% increase that staff could then count on, which becomes more predictable for them as well. But that would be built in. And so that conversation that the board used to have on, do we have a 3% increase for all staff or something different? Last year it was a 2.74% increase for all staff on salary. That conversation becomes different because 2% is already baked into the scale. in the conversation is what above 2%, if anything, can the organization afford to give as a raise to our staff? Just a couple other notes, and then I'll talk about implications. Again, jump in if you have any other questions. One thing that is in the written here in notes, but I'll say here, is that built into the system is a salary deduction for staff who are not fully licensed. So this is all in the case of teachers built on a fully licensed Tier 4 teacher. If a teacher has a Tier 3 license, it would be a $500 deduction from their salary, and if a teacher has a Tier 1 or 2 license, it would be a $1,000 annual deduction from their salary. The purpose of that is to really emphasize the importance of a Tier 4 license. That is somebody who has gone to school for a teaching degree in their field, and that's an important thing for our kids to have fully licensed staff in front of them. I think that the state's done a really great job of expanding the opportunities for people to come into the teaching profession. But we have seen here, and we do know that a teaching credential matters, and going to school to be a teacher matters. And we want to encourage all of our staff to go back and get that credential if they don't have it. All right, just a couple of the implications. So first, in this model, everybody would see an increase. That they would have the 2% from one year to the next, but again, staff would be placed on the next highest salary. The biggest gains here would be for those early career teachers, where we've really raised the floor. Everybody's going to get a little bit more, but the biggest impact would come from that teacher who's currently sitting at maybe $42,000, and they're going to go to that new floor of $48,000. So that's where we'll see a lot of that. We will see some staff who will exceed the salary structures and will move into the stipend. So there'll be some slowdown for those folks. It just sort of worked out this way that it's fairly evenly split across paraprofessionals, teachers, and district staff in terms of the number of staff. If we applied this to our current staff, that would fall into that slowdown category. There might even be a case or two where there wouldn't be a raise at all because some staff have exceeded the salary scales by a significant margin in a couple of cases. If we were to just take, again, based on our current staff, and to think about a 3% increase across the board for all staff, this model would cost us, if we did the 1% additional on top of the 2% that's baked into the model, this would cost us about $60,000 more than what it would otherwise if we didn't touch any of this and we continued to do what we've been doing. That would be $60,000 cheaper. This is $60,000 more expensive. Very approximate, but just to give you a ballpark of what this would mean from a money standpoint.
And then this is a proposed structure for 26, 27.
Correct.
How did teachers feel?
Most of them haven't been told.
Oh.
But I have a feeling they would be for it.
Yeah. I think thinking about like retention and stuff. And
Mhm.
other.
Yeah.
I know that. Yeah, I guess I'm interested to see or hear why certain teachers come here to teach. You know what I mean? Like with the, you know,
Why they would choose us over a different school.
or over a dish like why, you know, over St. Paul Public, or is it like the autonomy? Do you get more? Because for me, like if I could do some of my own stuff, I would take a pay cut. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. Well, that's just where my passion is. I like to just be with the young people and figure out, yeah. But I'm sure you guys got some special songs.
Any clarifications or questions about it? Again, it's just brought to you as information, but if there's anything that would be helpful for me to bring back in the future, happy to do that.
Is there money available to help teachers go back and get licensure, or is it super expensive for that to happen? I'm just wondering,
Oh,
like,
they
if
do that, you
if
have to grow
there's-
your own.
Yeah, we have
Is
a,
Grow Your Own available to everybody?
not everybody, there's restrictions around Grow Your Own, but we're fully utilizing the grant right now.
Okay.
And I believe we have 8 people now in Grow Your Own
Okay.
that are going back, so it's really great. It requires 80% of the participants to be people of color, so it's a great way to get more staff who look like our students in front of our students. So it's been great. We haven't seen anybody fully complete the program yet, but I think we had maybe 4 enrolled before and 4 more that started this year or are about to start. So yeah, Grow Your Own's a great program, and a really important program, especially in a school like ours where we're looking to become more diverse in our staff.
It'd be a really good incentive too, to get your licensure,
Yeah.
to get that raise, it'd be a really good incentive to make that happen for people who are just not doing it because they can't afford it, or there's, you know, I just really don't want to. Well, if it comes with a nice raise, that would be a really good reason to, that extra push to make that happen.
But I will say, I like the organization of this. I like how it's like related back to teacher salary, so then there's some type of reference point you can kind of gauge off of. Like, you know, at the KYC, I was like thrown in different positions every year and constantly having my position updated. So I know kind of like what, I feel like that's a charter school, dang. So I like that now we're like trying to put in like structure and pillars a little bit of being like, yeah, so I just think this looks really neat and clean, and working at an organization where I kind of know, I don't know. I think this makes sense in terms of the merger, in terms of us kind of like clarifying roles. I think like it just makes everything a lot more clean, and I'm glad to see things getting structuralized. 'Cause I think that helps like securing the foundation, right? So, anyways, I don't really have any comments, but I like it. So, thanks.
You just gave comments. Yeah, I like it too. I like it a lot. I think it'll help recruit and retain teachers. I think there's
Yeah,
a lot of
especially if you
teachers that would
know.
choose this school except that they can't afford to. And that's a huge thing. It's a huge thing. And I think that just being more competitive in salary, I think will help us.
We do know that we've
Better
lost
teachers.
multiple candidates this past year for teaching here just because of salary.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's 4 or 5 or 6, or 7. It's in that ballpark where we had people who wanted to work here, and they ultimately turned it down because they couldn't pay the salary.
Sometimes no matter how much you want to, you just can't live on a certain salary. So
Okay, you have
that's
mouth
great.
to feed.
Yep. Yeah, I like it. I think it's really good. I think it's fair. I think it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think it's good.
And I like the equity of like giving those newer teachers kind of like a, yeah.
Yep, I like it.
If you do think of questions, comments, feedback, just let me know. The goal still is to bring a budget for next year back to the board in April. Likely this would just all need to coincide at that same time, but again, trying to get this information out in front of people, even though it's not board approved and it's not final, it at least give us a way to talk about some of the hopes and dreams and plans for next year.
Do you think attendance is gonna affect this greatly if we're not able to increase attendance? Or how does it really-
Enrollment?
Yeah, I mean enrollment,
Yeah.
yeah. It will. So we really need to work on
I-
enrollment in order to make this feasible.
It's a board question for later, but given that we've lost candidates, for me, this ranks as a really high priority.
Yeah.
And so we really have to think about like, well, what, if we need to be in a position to make trade-offs, then what are we gonna most prioritize? And for me, this is a really important one, that there's really very few things that I would prioritize more than this for next year, because we're so far off from our main competitor here in St. Paul. And we know that we've lost teachers, and we know that we need to have quality staff in front of our students. I'm not sure what I would put ahead of this,
Yeah.
but the enrollment's a huge factor for us for sure.
Yeah, so we need to work on recruitment.
It's like a sticky situation because we need this in order to get like stable staffing and quality teachers, which which will help with enrollment eventually, right? Like if we can have a good reputation for what's going on in the classroom, then I think that will help us keep kids and recruit more. So, but like which one first? We need the kids to pay the teachers. We need the teachers to bring the kids.
All right.
Thank you.
Policies, it isn't busy.
Keep scrolling.
Ooh, should be on eight.
Just, okay, approved policy 509 revision.
So yeah, we'll have 5 policies in front of the board tonight. This first one, the modifications that you see in the red line version, these are all suggestions that came from IQS, from our authorizer. They did a review of our application and enrollment policy and gave us some feedback on a couple of things that they had questions about and that was potentially missing in the policy. So the red line version includes, it's primarily technical language, and you can look through here, but the clarifications are additional language around the homeless and highly mobile students there in the first red line. There's a little bit on Minnesota residency, just drawing back the student discipline policy to the Minnesota Pupil Fair Dismissal Act. Again, connecting to the home language survey that we do too, but having that as part of our policy. And then there's just a bit in here about children of staff preference for attending the school. So again, there's about 4 or 5 different suggested edits to the policy based on the feedback from IQS. Any questions about the proposed change?
No, I motion to approve.
Second?
A second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then we can approve policy 509 as suggested. And we can move on to approval of policy 101.
So these next 4 policies fall into the category of, I'm going to call it the second bucket from the MSBA, the Minnesota School Board Association. The chart that our ad hoc policy committee has been working off of to determine updates to our policies. So that first bucket that the board's been working through over the last year or so, that bucket are the mandatory policies where there is state statute that requires us to have those policies. We have all of those policies in place now. So these are all now moving on to that second bucket of policy. These are ones that are still really important that we have, and that MSBA recommends that we have as policies, but sort of that next tier down. And for the most part, these are technical policies that are verbatim from the model policy that we have through the Minnesota School Boards Association. Again, that's our reference point back for all of our policies, is back to MSBA. And I'll talk about this as we go through each of them. But for much of this is verbatim from the model policy from MSBA. So this first one is 101, and it's the legal status of the charter school. You can review this here and talk about any questions. It's all pretty straightforward. It just simply talks about the status of the school, but does go into a little bit more about the authority that the district has and the board has, as you can see when it talks about property, contracts, and textbooks. Again, straightforward, straight from MSBA. Any questions about model policy or about CPS policy proposed 101?
Let's make a motion to approve. Or sorry, do you?
Yeah, you're fine. Second?
A second.
Any further discussion?
also recommended by the ad hoc policy committee. Again, this is policy 101.1, name of charter school. The only change here was the insertion of St. Paul City School in number 2, general statement of policy. That's the only edit to the language from MSBA. Again, name of charter school 101.1. Ad hoc policy committee recommends this to the board.
Remain the same.
Yeah.
The only question I had is that we've chosen to abbreviate the Saint, we're sticking with that.
ST versus SAINT.
It's the only that's the only way I've seen it. Have you seen it differently?
No, I'm just trying to think, even on our building, does it have Saint spelled out?
It's
ST, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I have not seen it differently. I feel like with our, as students log into things, sometimes we have to write out Saint, but it's not as written as the title, but yeah. It's like if you log into some of the online programs, it's spelled out Saint. So, that's the only reason I bring it up.
Any ideas?
No?
I mean,
Okay.
I can go back and check some original documents
Yeah.
of the creation of the school, but when I've
Every
reviewed
time.
those in the past, I've not
Okay.
seen it spelled out before.
Okay. So, no, I think it's great. It's the name on the building. Let's stick with it.
It's on the building, it's gotta be right.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to approve policy 101.1.
Second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. It's approved, 101.1. And we can move on to policy 204, charter school board meeting minutes.
Similarly here on 204, there's a one-word change from the red line from clerk to secretary. Our language that we use here is secretary, and that is in 3, maintenance of minutes and records. The secretary shall keep and maintain permanent records. That's the only change from the MSBA model policy. I will, just for board's reference here on 3B, most of this policy talks about recordings of closed meetings. So if the board is in a position that they do have a closed meeting in the future, just know that there's a lot of language here in this policy about closed meeting. One of the most important things is that it is recorded, and that recording is kept separate from the regular board meeting. There's some more language in here, but a lot of this policy is speaking to the parameters around a closed meeting.
Does our board book program have like a special section for closed meetings? Do you know?
It's a good question, I'm not sure. Yeah, we haven't had a closed meeting in the year and a half that I've been here.
And we talked about keeping the recording separate, so like recording the first part of it and then stopping the recording and then starting it during the closed portion and then stopping the recording and then starting it again during the, like, so it was definitely kept separate from any other part of the meeting. So if it ever needed to be reviewed, it was, that part was kept separate.
Any questions about policy 204?
No? So, motion to approve then?
I'll second.
Aren't you too glad you came tonight? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Policy 204 has been accepted.
Last policy in front of the board is 205, open meetings and closed meetings. This too is directly verbatim from MSBA's model policy. No changes are presented here. There is a fair amount of language in here, though, as you look through it, specific to regular meetings, special meetings, and emergency meetings, or recess, and it does continue on beyond that, but a lot of that, all of the second page and a little bit of first page is about those 3 different types of meetings. We do have some language in our bylaws about special meetings and regular meetings, but this is more expansive than what we have in our bylaws. So know that we already have some language, but this gives us some additional language that's recommended by the Minnesota School Boards Association. fairly large section on closed meetings on page 4. This is letter E on closed meetings, and the reasons why we could have a closed meeting, the board could have a closed meetings. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8, 9, 10, 11 are all different reasons that a board could choose to close a meeting. So that goes from page 4 through page 6, giving the board additional, through 7, information about reasons why the school board could close a meeting and the procedures if meeting is closed. Any questions about Rule 5?
No, I'll make a motion to approve.
Any second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have approval of policy 205. Woo-hoo. We have 5,402 policies left to go.
We're making a lot of progress.
We really are. All right, number 13, finance and operations strategic plan.
Esteban!
update.
Right.
Woo-hoo, Esteban!
Just intro it here, and again say that this is part of our ongoing commitment to hear from other members of the leadership team and to provide the board with updates on the progress of the strategic plan that leaders are responsible for. So Esteban's leading the finance and operations strategic plan work as the director of finance and operations. So you're up for a quick update
Great.
or whatever you have for us.
Yeah, I'll just go through real quick the 3-year vision that the kind of this portion of finance and operations created last year, and I'll go through the 2 goals that we have as well, and just give you some progress on where we're at with goals, and then plans for next year. So the 3-year vision is that, and I know all of you are super familiar with the strategic plan. You view it all the time, right? Some of you already know this by heart, but that in finance and operations, that the 3-year vision is that St. Paul City School has achieved operational excellence and financial sustainability by prioritizing students and their community through efficient systems, transparent finances, strategic resource management, and diversified funding sources. We have fostered resilience and continuous improvement, ensuring long-term success. It's a 3-year vision, and the 2 goals build upon that 3-year vision. The first one being by June 30th, 2026, St. Paul City School will have achieved a $500,000 net income surplus. What I'll say on our track to meet that goal is that we are not currently on track to meet that goal. As you have seen in the financial reports, that the latest board approved working budget had a $317,000 surplus, and with our current issues with enrollment, that it could be lower than that, right? So the hope of reaching that $500,000, which we initially, when we started the year off, we were looking at in the 600 range, pretty rosy picture, and that has kind of slowly decreased throughout the year. So at this moment, I'll say that we are most likely not on track to meet this goal unless some really wild things happen here in the next couple months with enrollment, or we find some savings that we did not expect at all. That would be really one of some of the biggest areas that we could see being able to meet this. So still trying to get as close as we can to that 500, right? Like the but it's
It was hard when it was like disrupted,
Mhm.
People coming.
Yeah, and I think there are some things that we made investments and for this year, right? And so I think those are things that we needed to do as a school too. And there's just some happenstance of what's just gone on with our enrollment and some of our spending. So on our second goal, this was more. So that was more on the finance side of things. This try to do really one on the finance side, one on the operations side. But this next one is by June 30th, 2026. That St. Paul City School will ensure that 100% of employees have a clear, up-to-date job description and that at least 90% confirm clarity and alignment with their roles through a staff survey. We are, Jackie, who is our HR generalist, and myself have been working on updating all of the job descriptions for every single employee here and every single job. And we are done with all of them except for a few jobs or a few positions in a department. There's one of the supervisors wants a little bit more revision over her own employees, and so she's been working a little bit more collaboratively with Jackie, and so that one she's working on right now, and like the goal is to have it done in the next few weeks. So ideally in the next few weeks we'll have every single job description finalized, at least the draft portion, and the next phase will be to review with supervisors, review with employees as well, and then tie in the new job descriptions into the return for staff for next year, right? So when they're getting their offer letter of return, hey, this is your updated job description, what this will look like next year, and it's all standardized, all using the same language, the same format, and up to date, which is the most important thing. So I know I talked about it at my last update, but we had if we hired the position recently, we probably had a pretty updated job description. If we haven't hired an art teacher in however many years you've been here, we didn't have an updated job description. So this is just standardizing and making it a yearly practice as well to review them and update them every year as well. Then we'll do a survey to just ensure that staff understand, hey, this is my job, this is what I need to do, and I understand it, it makes sense, it matches what I'm supposed to do. So that's the.
Do you have a meeting scheduled? I know that one of the conversations I think we've had here at the board too is about our strategic plan committees regrouping and getting them to be a little more active and consistent. I'm not trying to pin you down in front of the board, but do you have a date set for when the team's going to be meeting again? And do you have any thoughts about what that the method of the regular meetings might look like?
Yeah, I don't have a meeting quite yet set for starting to, the creating some of those goals for next year, but I definitely am looking to get that started up. We had a pretty good team last year of a lot of operations people on my team, but we had a teacher board member last year as well. We had a student that was involved in it, and I'd love to whether it's a board member that's interested in joining these, or I also want to connect with some of our, especially high school students that might be seniors or juniors, to get somebody on that group as well. So I know you all have a lot on your plate, but if you're interested at all in discussing finance and operations, would love to have you be a part of that, if it's just briefly.
Yeah, no, somebody can hit me up.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks, guys.
We just recently did like a restructure, and honestly, like we're restructuring all the time. So I will get like, I feel like I've gotten some practice and like that looks like, so I can definitely do that.
Great. Yeah. I'll connect with you here in the next week and try to get a meeting set up, and I have a few students in mind that could be pretty good too. So yeah.
And I miss the young people, so it would be nice just to get tapped in.
Yeah.
Can you clarify, when you were writing job descriptions, you were working with supervisors to define what everyone's role is?
Like
okay,
a job
you
title?
used the art teacher as an example.
Yeah.
How did you
Yeah.
determine what my job is?
Yeah. So our teacher is taking like a previous job posting, taking job postings from other districts as well, and trying to mirror it. As I said, it's a draft; it's not finalized. Still needs to go in front of supervisors. But this is like hey, this is our best attempt at not being experts in every single person's job to provide what is typically the standard of that position overall in other schools.
I would say we have a few unique positions in our district where we have like K through 12 personnel.
Yeah.
And so like that's not typical in a regular district.
Amy wants to see hers, is what
I
she
do.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Maybe I'm doing too much and
No,
I need
it's
to
not.
like relax. So.
I don't think that we have one for every content area
Yes.
either.
Yeah.
So In most cases for teachers, and maybe it's different for specialists, but, right, correct me if I'm wrong, in most cases, there isn't a job description for every content area. There's a job description for a secondary teacher or
Correct.
an elementary teacher.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a specialist teacher job description, yes, correct.
So maybe specialist and not necessarily art specific.
Yep, correct. Yeah, we'd get into, it'd be a lot of very, very specific job descriptions for a lot of people. And it's just not how we've done it in the past either. It's been more general, more broad.
I think it's, I don't know if it was meant as a suggestion or not, but I think it's a great suggestion that as you're refining, especially those last steps in it, where we have a lot of it sort of sorted out, but getting feedback from teachers in those job positions, I think is a great idea.
For sure, yep.
Cause you're right, I'm sure there's very few art teachers that are K through 12.
Or,
Like,
I mean, and I'm not
really-
the only one, right? Like, we have a handful of specialists that are K through 12 employees that you wouldn't find in other districts. And if you are going to have to hire for those positions, like that's a big ask for candidates and something that they should know upfront.
Yep, for sure.
Awesome. And so we're just trying to get everything like cleaned up with the operations and systems and things like that. But I don't know, yeah, like we've restructured a lot, so you can definitely hit me up. I can come in.
Thanks, Kayla,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Is the intent, or is one of your intentions to share out like job descriptions, or maybe that's not, like I just think about how we have a lot of people doing a lot of different jobs, and sometimes I might ask you to do something that might not be under your umbrella. It might be like Jackie's thing, so like how to clarify for staff who to go to directly without having to like run around to find out who the appropriate person is to find like answers or a need that needs to be met. I think that's something that we're missing and could be helpful after this first step is complete. Not that we need to know everyone's job
Just ask
descriptions.
Ben
and
I think it's just a
everything.
part of,
their
like, to your
business,
point, it's
but-
just systems. Like,
Yeah.
what is the system? Who do I need to go to? And it's really hard to put in and have people abide to a new structure or a new system. Like, that takes time to, like, practice. But I think, too, like, I think that's just, like, what are the systems and what are the exact roles that our STEM education department does a very, very good job at being like, these are the operational roles. These are the staff support roles. These are like the camper roles, right? Like, so in our department, we wear all the hats, and that gets very exhausting. So I'm just saying that systems help. Systems help me feel not as burnt out because I know who exactly I need to go to. But I also know systems take time to put in place when there hasn't been. But it sounds like that's where all this is going, and that is in a really good direction. So I'm glad to hear that. But I think taking on some review or some staff feedback will help with being like, is this really how it flows, or is this really the right person that should be? Because then you might see like, oh, actually, this person should actually be doing stuff.
Right,
But
and
it's hard.
for like clarity for families and staff too, like it would be helpful to have a spot to look like, oh, who is this person and what is their job here? Like if we've had so many new people this year, I met someone today, I didn't know who they were, so.
We can post them all. I
Um,
think once they're done too, it's all, we post them all on our website
Yep.
for everybody to see.
And
For
that's
sure.
like the importance of keeping our website updated with current staff and positions too.
Yeah. Systems has been the name of the game we've had a lot of conversations in our staff leadership about systems this year, for sure.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want this one, Crystal?
Special ed
Yeah,
department
and I
update.
apologize, I'm on a really tight time frame.
Oh, yes.
Unless I was like almost ready to offer, like, do you want me to run and come back?
Yeah. No, just, that's right, now that you said that, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll just jump in. So I'm Crystal LeGras, Special Ed Director. I shared some numbers. Our total in the department right now is 124. That's 5 less than in September. But you'll also see that there's there's 3 initial evaluations in process and 2 students who were evaluated and were waiting for IEPs to be signed. So really, that's the 5 kind of there. So we're a little down, but also ready to pick those numbers right back up. The next slide is just an update of our leadership team. We had a transition in our evaluator position, which kind of gave an opportunity to just kind of refocus the allocation of duties. And so myself, and then there are 2 coordinators. Janet is more of a coordinator supervisor, Karen more of a coordinator evaluator. They also, there's always going to be overlap, like the supervisor does the para schedule, which is the whole school. But generally, Janet is specializing more in secondary, Karen more in elementary, which I think also helps in my department, like people to recognize mine as more the district-wide role, and then them as more the school's role. And then the 2 paraprofessional leads, Markeisha and Joel. Some highlights from this year have been expanding the continuum of services to meet needs. So we've expanded our opportunities at setting more 2 and 3 services for students to make sure that we have the right supports in place for them. Increased SEL and sensory supports. We've added some curriculum around SEL in elementary special ed, and also just more consistent sensory supports available across the board. Partnering with Zen Educate for substitutes, they're able to give us highly qualified paraprofessionals, which qualify for special ed funding, so that's been huge, and they've been a great partner this year. I also, earlier this year, met with the MD SPED finance people and have been attending a finance academy through the group for special ed directors. So just continuing to just really look at some of the reports and refine things that could help with our tuition billing or just different things with our special ed finances. Having flags in Infinite Campus so people can quickly see like who has an IEP, who's their case manager. I think that's been huge, that you're not having to go to a spreadsheet somewhere. It's somewhere where you're already taking attendance and doing other things. Improve systems of support for special ed teachers, a lot more personalized. Like in the past where it might have been a meeting where you're spouting due dates, we're doing, someone said it to me today, is we're having less meetings and getting more done because like it's more personalized where they have like almost every staff has a one-on-one check-in with myself or one of the coordinators. So it's much more specific to like, let's look at your caseload. Who's your next meeting? What questions do you have? Like what step are you at in the process? So that has had success. And then I also am part of a charter director network group, which the previous director wasn't a part of. So that really helps with just the networking with other charters so that we're aligned in our practices and able to share resources with each other. We meet a couple times a month and also have an email group. So they're a great resource. Which kind of goes into ongoing priority work, continuing to look at that continuum of services and where we want to continue to expand that. And then also aligning the master schedule work to go with those plans. We made some shifts already at secondary second semester, but there's more opportunity looking at planning for next year. Curriculum, I mentioned SEL. Right now, secondary special ed is looking at a couple different math curriculums. So continuing to really align across that. Due process practices and procedures. Like I said, we started with those more individualized check-ins. That's helped us kind of better understand the needs. We do have a lot of tier 1 and 2 teachers in our department, so continuing to expand resources. I always say I can't take away the fact that you have to do paperwork, but I can make it more efficient. And then PD, and then looking at expanding MA billing as well next year. So that's about it.
That's a lot.
We're busy.
Yeah, and like massive improvements from last year. Like just seems so much more streamlined, so much more organized,
We're getting there.
so much better processes and procedures for the students. Like just you can just see it and feel it that the work is getting done like by leaps and bounds. So like proud of you. Good job.
It's a work in progress,
Good job.
very much
Yes,
so. But my
yes,
team's been
but-
working hard.
Yeah.
Can I ask
You
one
can
quick
say- yeah.
question? Can you say a little bit more about what PD would be beneficial for your staff?
I think definitely more with due process. Like READ Act has taken a lot of time this year because we're in that first group, K-12, that all special ed has to do that. So balancing that out. So I think just continuing to be able to increase people's capacity and independence and different procedures that they're learning this year and doing alongside of us.
And are you including like EAs in that training or like training?
It depends
Is
on
that
what it
under
is.
that
Yeah. So like
umbrella?
our leadership team meets before every PD day, and so the para leads also have a voice in like what are the needs right now. some things did shift with online learning, but like our OT was scheduled to present. I'm gonna reschedule her now because it was all happening right around the time of our recent events. We held off, but we've also incorporated a lot more collaboration time into PD so that people are purposely collaborating within teams, because it can be hard to get all the right people in a space together.
And are you getting feedback from like classroom teachers about what specific training paras could use help with in their classrooms, or?
I mean, I would say like as a school, we always do a PD feedback usually. So like Nicole shares all those results for me, but I can certainly ask specific to
I think
special ed.
I think that that feedback is well taken too.
Yeah.
I think that we're just broadly trying to help, I think, both teachers and paraprofessionals understand what their roles look like inside the
Yeah.
classroom. I don't think broadly speaking that that's well understood by everybody, again, in both of those different roles. So there is definitely professional development needs to happen there.
That's a good point.
And also the teacher, this is their classroom, and they're seeing what's happening with the paraprofessionals in there on a regular basis. And so their feedback in another district, it's very common for a regular education teacher to give feedback to a supervisor on the paraprofessional who is supporting the classroom. So I think that's something that as we go forward that we can make sure that we take more of.
Yeah, and you can always email this by email. It goes to all three of us. But also a lot of it, because there's a history of them not necessarily fully understanding their role, it's kind of almost like starting small within the department of like the teachers and special ed teachers and paras even knowing how to work together, and then continuing to expand out. Like I literally started the year like showing them the statutes that speak to paraprofessionals and who oversees their work and who decides what their responsibilities are, what documents. So like really starting at square one.
And are they given, are like our paras given opportunities to, or do they know how to read IEPs and like look for what students' goals are so that when they're supporting those students, they can.
They all have access to the snapshots, and then a lot of that collaboration time is also meant to go towards that, so that it's not just you go to a folder, but also there's a chance for a case manager to say, hey, so-and-so has a new IEP. So like a team meets together that supports a group of kids or a classroom and can talk about, there's been behavior plan updates or things like that. And like I said, I think like that next step is expanding it out to gen ed too, but I had to start just with special ed even knowing how to collaborate, and that's kind of been the focus first, so that we can then keep expanding out.
Makes sense.
You gotta go, I do, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was good. Thank you.
If that did get too rushed at the end, I'm sure Crystal would be more than happy to come back to a
I
future
would.
board meeting too. If it did just get too rushed, then they can just send me a note and I'll get her moved up on the list.
That was good though. It just feels so much better than much. Like you can try to just, again, my computer, I could, but, it just, it'll come back. All right. District leader.
Yeah, just a couple things I'll mention, because I'm not going to go through the entire slide deck. I mentioned this earlier, tomorrow's the target date for bringing the majority of our students back. We think about 90% of our students are going to be back, probably a little higher across the school. We'll see how everything shakes out tomorrow. I know our
You
teachers
got
and
enough
staff
lunches?
have done a ton of work to try to get ready, but tomorrow's the day. Yeah, it'll be busy, but it'd be great to have our kids back. Just the budget issues that I mentioned earlier, and related to that enrollment, that's really the big one that we want to start shifting some of our attention to, is some recruitment for the spring and into next year. So again, any ideas you have on that? We've got some neighborhood-based ideas. I'm happy to share more information with you, but we've got some ideas that we'll keep working forward. Leslie has a note in here on the Social Emotional Wellness Committee. She's looking to get that reestablished, similar to how we talked about with finance and operations. And then the teaching and learning one. So we give a reading and a math 3 times a year. It's a fall, winter, and spring. And we just completed the winter assessments, so we'll do another one this spring, and, you're right, there is a little bit of up and down.
Well,
Um,
and I would say, like, not to I'm sorry, I
No.
interrupted you, but,
ahead.
those students who were at home, we're gonna be finishing when they come back, so sometime in the next 2 weeks, we're gonna give them theirs. So we're not completely done, but we're done with everyone who was here. Sorry.
That's so good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no,
Yeah.
totally. In math, as you have in your information here, an overall increase of 5%, for our students from fall to winter, so that's really great. Some progress there in math, and then specifically in middle school reading. Remember that we added that middle school reading class this year. Probably not just that, but part of that. We saw a 6% gain there. So there's some signs that it's moving in the right direction. We still have a long ways to go, but some hopeful signs in the data. I'll leave it there.
Is there anything that we as the board can be doing around recruitment? And I took flyers to Hallie and I took flyers to BIHAC, but is there, are there any events coming up that we could be taking flyers to or attending, or how can we support?
I think the answer is yes, events. I'm not sure, and I haven't collected a list of different, maybe that's an action step that I can take too. But yeah, any community-based events, anything that you can bring information to and support the sharing out the information about our school. I put the flyer in the update here. I also have a bunch of printouts in my office if you want hard copies of that flyer. So yeah, I get a list together, but I think anything that you can think of.
Yeah, if you want me, I can pass them out on Friday at 825 Arts. We're gonna be
Yeah,
doing
that
3D
idea.
glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll pass them out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alright, I
I'll
can send
promote.
Friday.
I miss recruitment, so I'm all about it. I'll talk to anybody.
Were you able to put stuff in the public libraries and their like teen centers and things like that? Remember?
Oh yeah, we have the library at Hallie
There's
now. I can put them at Hallie
the
and in the library.
Rondo,
Hey, next
there's the one downtown that I think
Mhm.
like has a lot of programming for teens, and they have like a 3D printer there, and I feel like there's kids hanging out to use the computers at the libraries also,
Mhm.
the public libraries.
Mhm. I guess let's try to collate a list.
I think we need to be doing something to, we're doing so well financially, and we're right on track. Like, I hate to see us kind of fall backwards again, when we're so close to pulling up. We gotta stay where we're at.
Yeah.
Okay,
Some of the rec centers have like tournaments and team things. Like we have a couple of our students that are part of a basketball league that does those traveling tournaments. Like Weston's played a couple of them.
Mhm.
It would be, we have a little pop-up at a tournament or
I
something.
can
Yeah.
take some over to JK Movement too. I didn't think about that. I'll take some over to Johnny Edge.
There's like basketball stuff going on all the time.
Our focus, I can't remember, I should if I'd shared it with you or not, but we have a recruitment and retention strategy document that we've been working off of. And it really focuses on about half-mile radius around the school. So I think that staff still went out today, but we had staff go out to the community and share some of the flyers. I think one of the most efficient places to look is in our backyard. I think there's a lot of houses nearby, but there's also a lot of large apartment complexes. And especially as we have continuing to develop a great school for our kids and families, going out into our local community and having them see this school as their school in these blocks around us. That's where we've focused most of our energy, but I got a list of the things that you're talking about here too, that I think we can do more in those spaces as well.
I feel like long-range planning, like having more after-school activities available for students would help draw some. And as they go, like if there's a competition for like whatever it is, then our name gets out there too.
Mhm.
Because they see other
Mhm.
students participating in things. So it's not something we can do right away because we gotta figure out transportation for that and things, but long range, programming stuff that might actually also help enrollment if they see there are activities they can join and do.
Now that we have a social media manager too, I wonder if they could interview some parents and students and put like some interviews on our
Oh, that's a good
social
idea.
media. It's like nice to have like testimonials from actual.
Yeah, cause I tend to focus on, like, when I said J.K. Rubin, I'm like, I could take him over to Johnny, because then Johnny would be like, hey, this is where Miss Michelle is at, you know, you can have someone that you can personally connect to say, she wouldn't be at that school if she didn't trust the school. If it wasn't a good school, her granddaughter wouldn't be, you know, so you have those personal connections, like, that's where I think, who do I know that can personally vouch for the fact that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't a good school, kind of thing, cause I go so far, so, that's what I always tend to think about, who do I know that will personally put the word out and vouch for this school, cause that's huge, 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 if you can get people who will, trust you and trust, you know, your judgment in being there, and the fact that your child is there, your grandchild, or something you know, or you're on the board, or, you know what I mean?
That's how
like,
we've had,
you
I
know.
think most of our enrollment's been
Yeah.
sustained
Yeah.
through the years,
Yeah.
is just word of
Yeah.
mouth, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Maybe
Okay.
we could give like kids a free homework pass or something if they post our stuff on their social media.
That's funny. All right. Old business, new business? Anybody got business? I got no business. You got any business? Yeah.
I got a business here.
All right, then, oh my gosh, 6:39, we can adjourn, Amy. That's gotta be like a record.
You gotta make a motion.
Well, I motion to adjourn.
Okay, somebody second, quick, any discussion? All right, then we can adjourn. That's, okay, it's still 6:39.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Chloe.
Okay, I wanna know where I acquire one of those